Hey everybody, frank+kern here, and welcome to this video interview with my teacher, Dan Kennedy. Dude, this is amazing. So we're in Cleveland right now in a real video studio. I've never been in a real video studio.
Except for those porn films.
They were short films.
Yeah.
And I take a lot of pride in that. Very few men can get the job done as quickly as I can.
There you
and
go.
On time. I don't like to show off. I'm just efficient, and I think it's my German roots. You know. But dude, here we are. We're in this thing, and we show up, and we're just a couple of dudes on camera wearing makeup on the internet right now. So this is, I've never gone through this, had the makeup, and so I look over at Dan, and I was like, you know, this is just to my list, so we don't have to try to act normal or anything. And you said to me, I'm long past the point of actually caring.
Yes.
And I think that's a great place to kick the interview off with. Where does that mindset come from, and how has that helped you?
Well, it mostly comes from, 40 years in fatigue, but it is helpful, I think, not to be needy whenever you are selling, even when you are using media to sell. When you are writing a script, this is not scripted obviously, but when you're writing a script or when you're writing copy, if your mindset is sort of, this has to work, so right now, as we're doing this, you probably don't care, you probably don't pay attention, but it's NFL, toward the end of the NFL preseason, and teams are making decisions about who they're going to keep, who they're going to cut, who's going to be the starter, who's going to be the one on the bench. And a lot of people will perform worse under those circumstances than they would if they were crowned the starter and knew they had their job, right? And so people who are under pressure and feel either from real circumstances, they let themselves be in a position where, they need tomorrow's money to pay yesterday's light bill, or they simply feel that way, attitudes about money and so forth. I think it comes through when you are selling one-to-many or one-to-one, and I think it comes through when you sit down at a keyboard or a legal pad and you write copy. And so perhaps not to the extent that I am now, but the not having to have a hit, the not having to have everything work, I think is useful. It's liberating. It's beneficial. It's why in direct marketing stuff you want to do complex tests, not simple tests, whether you're a hired gun copywriter or whether you're doing stuff for yourself, because you want 6 things happening and only one of them needing to work. You don't want one thing happening and it having to work. I think it actually screws you up. I don't think it helps you. That
pressure, I guess, that you put on yourself.
Yeah.
Kind of like golfers. I'm a new bad golfer. And I will probably be a bad golfer long after I'm a new golfer.
You will never be as bad as me.
I don't know.
No, I promise you.
I can make the ball right angle like this. So I've actually hit it behind. I swear to God, I've made the ball go behind me.
I've done that too. So the last time I played golf, I knocked myself unconscious.
I read this.
Okay?
Actually, you're right about that.
See, you will never be that bad.
I could try.
I drove that thing 900 miles an hour this far off the ground into a little metal cart crossing sign, and it came back and hit me right here, and the next thing I knew, I'm laying on my back looking at paramedics.
I remember that stuff. I can't remember where I read this. It was in the morning, because I rarely listen or I rarely watch DVDs. I listen to CDs or I'll read your transcripts, So I remember this story. And you've got this here, which I want to talk about. But in one of these, let's see, in the secrets portion of this, you talk about you and John Carlton are in this product, and you're talking about the power of telling stories. Everyone talks about it, like, you should tell stories in your marketing, you should tell stories in your selling. I believe you probably have a structure for it, and I'm curious of what that is.
Well, so first of all, most people who hear that, speakers or trainers or copywriters, even one-to-one salespeople, they tend to do it awkwardly. So it actually is too structured. It is, okay, every page and a half, I'm going to insert a story. Every 4 paragraphs, I'm going to insert a story. When I first started in speaking, the National Speakers Association rule everybody was being taught was every 7 minutes you had to be funny. So people would...
No pressure there at all.
No. But so when you build a presentation, people were building it by, there's got to be a humorous story here. There's got to be a humorous story here. There's got to be a humorous story here. And when you write copy that way, you impose on you a set of almost bureaucratic, autocratic rules, as opposed to being conversational. So if it's natural to tell a humorous or not humorous or emotional or whatever story at this point as you're going through a presentation, then you ought to do it. If it's not, just by formula, if there's 16 pages, there has to be 9 stories. I think that's a mistake. Having said that, there's a structure to it in the sense that a good story it can be used in several different ways. It can be used as proof. It can be used to instill fear. It can be used to motivate or inspire. It can be used to distract from a flaw in a product that you've decided not to trot out and talk about. It can be used as a bridge kind of from one place to the other. So it's not so much you should tell stories. It's stories are a tool that you may have a reason to use one in order to accomplish a specific purpose. And so, like a summary story in a complex sale. And so the product has 18 component parts, right? And you're going to cover that in 16 pages, or you're going to cover that in 30 minutes on video, right? Well, because of primacy and recency, people only can retain pretty much what they hear at the beginning and what they hear at the end. Read at the beginning or read at the end. If you have anything complex, you almost have to do a summary toward the end before you now actually do, here's what you get, and here's how much it costs, and here's why it's a great value, and here's the bonuses. So you got to bridge from wherever you're ending to that by summarizing everything that went before, because they forgot half of it. Right? And so often a summary story, so if you look at the stump speech for magnetic marketing, which also works as a sales letter, the Al the Plumber story summarizes everything that was taught leading up to it. And it's also the bridge into now the actual call to action. You get this, you get this, you get this.
Almost like a way to restate, I suppose,
Yeah.
what you just said without being overtly.
Without here's the summary of what we've said so far, right? Which is a little too kind of academic for most sales purposes. Again, it's not the way you or I would talk over a beer, right? And so but to say that you must use stories. I mean, look, I've seen people who sell from
would freak people out.
I've seen people who
I have to use a story.
Yeah, and I don't know how to tell
now?
stories. Yeah. I mean, I've seen people sell from the front of the room who do nothing but tell stories. Mike Vance is a great example, the late Mike Vance. So Mike really just tells stories, and then almost the worst thing you can do as a speaker. But the stories are so effective, and he was so likable that he literally could then switch to, and here's my stuff, and if you want it, you can have right. And I've seen
that's a very good pitch to make a bit of work. That's an easy one.
And I've seen speakers never tell a story and do well. So it's not like it's an ironclad rule, but stories can be a really useful copy technique. used for a variety of purposes. But like all devices, you ought to know why you're using it and pick and choose wisely. You ought not just be bound by somebody who put you in a workshop and said, here's the 5 things you have to do in a sales letter.
I think you should really goes for just about everything.
Yeah.
That kind of find what works for you and relax a little bit. You know, when I'm fortunate enough to see clients face to face, or even students in a seminar environment, it seems that they want to cling to some sort of certainty so badly, like a set of rigid rules, you know, that if I just do these 7 things, it will definitely work. And I think that is counter-effective.
Yeah, so I have the saying, be the wizard, but beware the wizard, right? So you're absolutely right. What people want, okay, is they want to be told exactly what to do in the exact order they ought to do things. In dentistry, for example, where I have 2 clients who sell to dentists, the most effective thing to sell them is exactly what to say. Script. Here is how to answer the phone. Here's the script. Here is what to say to get a referral. Here's the script. Okay, that's what they want. And when we're selling, we ought to keep that in mind. Now, as a user, as a doer, as a practitioner, we ought to reject that. If for no other reason than the fact that that's what most people want.
Yeah.
But because for you and I to use exactly the same script to ask for a referral would be inane.
Yeah.
Right? We are 2 different personalities. If we were dentists, we would have different relationships with our patients. We would probably attract different patients in the first place. Now, the structure of that, the architecture, yes.
That could be the same.
The verbiage, no. And so having like copywriting resources, this pile of stuff, is meant to provide you with architecture, provide you with cafeteria options, but not lock you into playing Mad Libs. You know, here's a fill in the blank. Now that's, by the way, that's what everybody wants.
It's better than nothing.
But well,
it's better than what they're doing now, probably.
Yes, if
I
all
don't mean you guys, but just the general public, you know, is
if all most people did is work out of a swipe file, almost cheap, you stitch it together and sand off the edges, they would be ahead of. You know, it sort of depends on how competitive the mailbox they're going into is, right? If they're a local jewelry store, since you're bejeweled.
Well, and bedazzled. You should see the back of this shirt.
If there's yeah, I don't know, I don't want to know where you have diamonds. If there's a, so if there's a local jewelry store, chances are his competition is very bad at this. Yeah. But now if you're marketing on a national or a global scale to affluent individuals and you're competing with, you know, companies that do a lot of testing and you're, you know, now you got to step it up some. And then when you just start cutting and pasting to formula, because, you know, Halbert called it salesmanship in print. One of the things that works best is personality coming through what you do, right? People are unconsciously, subconsciously looking for authenticity. And you can't hand somebody an authentic script.
An authenticity
I can't
toolkit.
give you an authentic sales
That's
letter.
pretty funny. Here's how to be authentic.
Yeah, here's how to be
we
authentic.
should, as a joke, make some sort of a product called "How to Be Authenticity in a Box," and then see if it's.
You would sell it.
I couldn't do it. I couldn't keep a straight face.
You know, Vance always said if Dale Carnegie were alive today, he hoped he would modify at least one piece of advice. Because in How to Win Friends and Influence People, which of course was written out of the depths of the Great Depression, you know, one of the pieces of advice is smile a lot, people will like you better, right? And Vance said he would hope he would modify it today to have a reason to smile a lot, create reasons to smile a lot so that you are authentically smiling, not gluing it, you know, on like a mask. And certainly with sales copy, if you just take copy and glue it on like a mask, again, to your point, you may get better results than you would not doing anything at all, or with really bad copy. But what you really want is, again, the right architecture, the right approach, but you want it then to be in your own authentic voice.
Let's talk about copy for a minute, and let's talk about this big pile of stuff. So this is unbelievable. I got the preview of this in the mail before we came.
It's cool, one of us did.
Yeah, this is something. So the first thing is this manual, and it's called Sorcery, and in this, you talk about mind control in this, and you talk about manipulation of emotion in here. And I mean, it's just setting us up for attack. You know, the people coming out of the woodwork. This is evil. You shouldn't try to manipulate others, etc., and so on. So I know your opinions on that.
Well, I mean, so words like manipulation and scheme, people attach negative connotations to them that are not definitional. There can be an evil scheme, there can be a good scheme. If you happen to be a Christian, then the entire scheme for promotion of Christianity that was created and implemented pretty successfully, certainly you would view that as something good. So really everything we do that is effective is manipulative. Now there's questions of intent and there's questions of extent, but everything is manipulative. If you own a restaurant and you take a great deal of care to create great ambiance and a great environment that people are comfortable in and want to return to again and again, you are engaging in manipulation, right? So to sort of have that adverse reaction to it is foolish. Beyond that, when we sell something to somebody, we are almost always causing them to behave contrary to their conditioned, habitual, organic response, right? So everybody has had this experience. They go to a store to get something. So it's purposed. I've gone to buy a new jacket.
You're still just looking.
As soon as a person comes up to you and says, "Can I help?" No, I'm just looking.
I've said it in the convenience store.
Of course.
So who looks at the
it's such a condition. Well, I mean, there's people that do their Christmas shopping at 7-Eleven. So, so that's such a conditioned habitual response. Most people can't help themselves, even when they actually want help.
Yeah.
Right. So that goes on all the time, right? So we are almost always getting people to behave differently than their conditioned habitual response. We want them to buy now. Well, most people, 99% of the people, their conditioned habitual response to everything is to delay and procrastinate for all sorts of reasons. They don't really feel confident about their ability to make a decision, right? And the ghosts of all the bad decisions they've made in the past are haunting them. They didn't plan on spending money today. Maybe they're going to have to go home and justify the purchase they just made to somebody else. There's 6 million reasons. Again, when you sell in heartland of America, evangelical Christian territory, there are people who have taken a religious oath to pray on it. Other people of a certain age, they've agreed, they sleep on a decision. Okay? And they say it that way, we have to sleep on it. So that's their behavior. If we want them to buy now, we are disrupting their conditioned habitual behavior, and we're going to do that by manipulating psychological factors, emotional factors. Creating a sense of urgency is a form of manipulation. Communicating real or perceived scarcity is a manipulation, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? And so to run from that, To think that you are going to prosper absent it is contrary to all reality. So the question really is never, are you going to engage in manipulation? Are you going to use psychological manipulation or not? The question is whether you're going to be any good at it or not.
It's a powerful distinction.
And if you want a moral element to add to it, the question is whether you're going to use it for good intent or evil intent. But there's no question you're going to do it. You're just either going to do it well and skillfully and consciously and knowledgeably, or you're going to do it poorly. So every business, every small business that puts a website up is engaging in manipulation within the website. Right? That's not a question. That's what the thing does. Now the only question is whether yours is going to be any good at it or not. That's really the only question here.
This stuff, I've studied, I don't want to say everybody because that's kind of a generalization, but most.
You're a real student.
Well read, one would say. I really appreciate it when people have pictures in the books, just for anyone wanting to write any. It makes it easier. This stuff is really the most unpolished, frank look at how this stuff really works that I've ever seen. You know, there's no frosting on this. It's just the ugly, brutal truth of it. And in this, you talk about E factors, and I've got a list of them. What is an E factor before?
It is an emotional factor that drives human behavior both consciously and unconsciously. So it affects people on a conscious level and they know they're being affected by it. And it also affects them on an unconscious level and they really don't know they're being affected by it. But in both cases, it drives behavior.
Ties into that manipulation pretty strongly.
Yeah, I mean, look, the truth of the matter is, and so people draw distinctions between consumer and business to business and highly educated customers and uneducated. These distinctions are all fallacious. You know, people by and large, whether you're selling to the CEO in the boardroom or to Hank the plumber in his mobile home, people by and large move, act, buy, driven by E factors. And they rationalize, justify, explain to themselves the decision they make, the purchase they make, the action they take, then based on logic and fact and rationale, you know, and all of that. So not only do you use, or should you use, E factors in persuasion, you should try and connect to an audience that matches up with the E factors you have to work with.
Now, what do you mean by that? That's an interesting.
Well, so for example, I'm writing, you're visiting my workplace tomorrow, so unfortunately you will see this has taken over the workplace. I'm writing a very complex amount of copy project for the state of Oklahoma's Department of Commerce recruiting businesses to move to Oklahoma. Okay? So the only good news for me, like about that horror show that's going on in that town in Missouri this week, is it's not Oklahoma. Okay? Because they've already this summer had a botched execution, earthquakes, you know, a locust attack. So that news to me is
like Oklahoma, colon, we're not Missouri.
But so Oklahoma it's a very conservative state. Okay? It's politically conservative, it's socially conservative, its governor is politically conservative, its flag could have been "Don't tread on me." You know, Glenn Beck is probably very, very popular there. I mean, and so what's best for me is the CEO of a company who could move there, who is also profoundly politically conservative, socially conservative, because trying to get a liberal to be excited about moving his company to Oklahoma is much harder than trying to get a conservative to move his company to Oklahoma. So in lead generation, I'm going to write copy that calls out to a politically and socially conservative CEO, repelling a politically and socially liberal CEO, because then from there on, my chances are much better manipulating the E factors with the person who is most likely to be manipulated by the E factors that I have to work with.
That's an interesting person, I guess archetype, if we wanted to use that phrase, that you mentioned, that conservative CEO type of guy or lady. So,
or liberal, if you were selling Silicon Valley, you would do the exact opposite.
Yeah, I mean, it's a complete.
Now the same E factor categories would apply, okay? But you would use them differently based on who you are using them on.
So if we're talking to the CEO, then I'm going to list these factors here, and then kind of just at random. I know this is on the spot.
That's okay. We're going to use the CEO.
I think you've been doing this.
We're going to use the CEO I have been communicating with or writing to. Okay,
Yeah.
fine.
All right. So we want to get a message to the conservative, financially conservative, affluent CEO to get him to move to Oklahoma. Here are the E factors: fear, guilt, greed, pride, love, and lust. Just give me a couple of them.
Yeah, can't always use them all.
Yeah.
You try. So fear is easy. So Governor Perry in Texas has been most successful of anybody in the Southwest states of getting businesses to move. He's very aggressive. He's very successful at it. And so the advertising they're running in Illinois is get out of Illinois before it's too late. And it's all about and so I've written it about a number of states where their deficits are so huge and they can't print money like the federal government. So their deficits are so huge, their pension funds are so underfunded, their economy is in such a shambles that these states are destined for raising taxes, creating new taxes, possibly for at least cities within the states going bankrupt. California's had 5, as you know, so far. They hold the record for bankrupt cities,
But at
by
least
the way.
it's probably because our low taxes there.
But Detroit, yeah. Detroit, so the specter of having your business trapped in a place where services are going to decline, right? Quality of workforce is going to decline because people are leaving who have the ability to leave. You are going to pay more taxes to get less, which ultimately the value of your whole company is diminishing by all of this. So the fear of marauding hordes in the street chasing down the 1%er to stab him and take his food, and the company and the city around it in complete decline, that's fear.
And so it's fear of loss primarily.
It's fear of loss, chaos, trauma, personal danger, et cetera.
So then you trigger that fear to get them to be like, holy crap, this could be me. What do you use to set up, and we'll just use the Oklahoma now as this example.
So there's and it's in here somewhere, there is a thing in copy, which I call progressive agreements, okay? That in order to buy anything, people have to engage in a series of progressive agreements, some of which are easier than others, but they have to occur in order, right? The only exception is a complete impulse buy. Okay? So if you bought that on complete impulse wandering in a mall, that's an exception.
I want him to look like Lil Wayne.
Okay, so all right, so if you said to yourself, okay, so now that was a progressive series of agreements. The first being, I want to look like Lil Wayne. Okay, then to do that, I'm going to buy glitzy jewelry. Then I'm going to buy a bracelet. Then I'm going to buy. Okay, so you had to go through this series of agreements before you bought that bracelet. Right?
That happens regardless of
happens
situation
with everything.
For every.
Yeah, see that it's in the fear in the E where we just were in that little box of we're going to scare the hell out of the CEO in Illinois,
run him to Oklahoma,
and get him to move to Oklahoma.
Yeah. It sounded pretty damn appealing to me as we're having this conversation.
But where all the states start is way past agreements that had to occur. They start with, hey, look, we're Oklahoma and we got low taxes and we're a right to work state, and we got decent weather, and you should move here. No. He first has to agree that it is intolerable and dangerous for him to stay where he is. Then he has to agree that he can move, right? Then he has to agree that he will move. Then he has to agree where he'll move. So if we start here, we're 4 steps ahead of where he is.
Yeah.
That gap will kill our sale.
And you call that progressive agreement?
Progressive agreement.
That's brilliant.
Yes.
I mean, that's really
Yes, it
freaking
is.
good. I mean,
Yes,
I've learned something in this interview. So when you create a persuasive message, whether it's one-to-many, well, they're always almost one-to-many with what you're doing, do you sort of outline the progressive agreements that must be made?
Not to be fair, I've been doing this long enough, and I do it so often, and Oklahoma's an exception. I'm usually personally, I'm working in product or service categories where I work a lot.
Yeah.
Right? So I really can mostly do it in my head. I don't have to do it on paper.
Right.
But in this case, I did it on paper because I'm working somewhere I don't normally work. And so you have to reverse engineer backwards from, okay, in order for them to buy this, and so if you took any one of my long sales letters, and you started at the end, and you took it apart moving backwards, you would see that there is a series of points where we have reached an agreement about something, and we are now if you move forward, and we are now moving on to another agreement, right? So if you look at the magnetic marketing speech, the first point of agreement is if you're a salesperson, prospecting sucks. Right? Now, I don't actually trial close. I don't say, do we agree about that? How many agree? Raise their hands, okay? Because I'm not a big trial close guy, but somebody who uses a lot of trial close could trial close there. And so if you're a salesperson in the audience, we're agreeing that prospecting sucks. Right? If you're a small business owner, we're agreeing that most of your advertising dollars are wasted and you're an advertising victim. Right? That's the first agreement we reach before I have a prayer really of interesting you in everything else I have to say. If I start all the way down here with, we have a great marketing system for your small business.
But when, of course, their natural reaction is going to be no. So everything you're doing really is anticipating that natural reaction.
Yeah.
And then reverse engineering what must occur to overcome
And look,
it.
the reason you get 2%, 1%, 0.5%, 5%, whatever the number is, to actually buy from a video, from a sales. See, they fell off all the way along, not agreeing to things. Or if you get really bad results, you didn't do progressive agreement. You tried to leap them rather than move them through a series of yeses.
Absolutely amazing. I really like the progressive. Now I want to go back and read all the ads and analyze it. That's what a weirdo I am, but that is pretty cool. So essentially, I guess if we were to try to formulaically model this process, you outline what the progressive agreements are, and then you choose, cafeteria style almost, which
how many
E
factors can I use
is going to match the progressive agreement.
What order do they rank in? Right.
Is there one, I know you hate the word one, so I'm setting myself up for a lecture on this. Is there one that is like maybe the biggest one, like the default E factor?
Not really. I mean, look, fear and all of its subsets, alarm, is the easiest to do. Right? It takes the least amount of thought and skill. So as a default,
likely the most used as well.
Well, for that reason.
Yeah.
But it is not necessarily the best.
Yeah.
And it is you want them all, right? It's just a question of order and emphasis. But sometimes you can't get them all. But even obliquely, you can get to them. So if we go back to my Oklahoma example, and we'll leap down to lust. Right? if you can make somebody lust to be in Oklahoma, I don't know how to do it.
Yeah, there's not two words that really go together.
But I do know that the CEO who is going to make this decision, one of his concerns, because even if he's been married for a long time, he still hopes to get laid every once in a while, right? Lust. So one of his concerns is going to be, what happens when I tell the wife, we're moving to Oklahoma?
Yeah.
Right? Or we're going to live 6 months out of the year in Oklahoma. She probably ain't going to be a happy camper. The closest Neiman Marcus is in Dallas. Right? So that's an elephant in the room, right? That's an E factor that whether it occurs to him consciously or unconsciously or both, it will occur to him. And if he's really obtuse and it doesn't, it's going to happen to him when he does go home with a whole pile of literature about Oklahoma.
Yeah, that would be thrown at him.
Yeah.
Great
So
malice.
better to deal with it and help him be prepared for this. Now, I can't come out and say, here's 27 reasons why you can move your company to Oklahoma and still get laid. Right? I can't be that overt. But that's what I have to accomplish.
Not an easy task.
No, but it's doable.
Nice. Now, that's interesting. So essentially, we're talking about skepticism either by that particular prospect or his peer group that's going to then filter into his mindset. And I've read this in your books, and you pretty much have just said it now. You really never run from it. You always address it.
Almost always.
Yeah.
It's very rare for me in copy, particularly in copy, to see one-on-one selling, right? You give me some feedback, okay? And I can sort of, if I'm skillful, I can sort of sense whether or not we can skip something and we can move to the sale. In media, in print, obviously there's no feedback. So some percentage, at least, are going to immediately conjure the ugly, smelly elephant.
Yeah.
So I will almost always choose to trot it out, paint pink polka dots on it, and try and convince everybody it would be cool to have.
Well, who wouldn't want the ugly, smelly elephant?
And so, a lot of copy is about being able to understand the person you're writing to, and then be able to kind of visualize what will occur to them during the course of this presentation. We just did some videos for American Writers and Artists, AWA Act, for a new course for an information product. And it's complicated. It actually requires work.
God forbid.
Not a good thing.
Now, what if they just tape each manual, one manual to each side of the head, and then sleep with it like that for like a day?
We sold sleep learning for years. We did.
I remember.
You got the little sleep pillow speaker. You put that baby under there. You just listen to everything while you sleep, and you automatically. And there's some legitimacy to it, by the way. So
did you come up with the term sleep learning?
Yeah. People loved it, by the way. Everybody else at the time was selling Walkmans, and you had to go when you go out and jog, put the thing.
That requires jogging.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. See, everybody sleeps.
Yeah.
Everybody's going to go sleep. So in that copy, in that interview, the host says, "This sounds terribly complicated, and it sounds like a lot of work."
My reaction to that would be like, it is terribly complicated.
Exactly, okay? But so the copy is, it is complicated, but simple is a false god. Here's the 3 reasons why.
Nice.
Okay? And then here's why it's worth this effort. Because you build it once, it runs forever, it feeds you forever. Right? So, but it has to be dealt with. right? Because if it's not dealt with, you're gonna see that's an agreement we have to have.
Exactly
okay,
right.
that I don't really like the fact that it's complicated, but I understand why it has to be, and I agree that the payoff here is so good that it's worth. Like, if that agreement doesn't take place, everything after that is worthless. Doesn't matter how great the testimonial is, doesn't matter how great the demo is, none of that matters because you lost them right there.
Their brain's still going to be saying, but it's complicated.
You lost them right there.
Yeah. Fascinating. So I want to talk about another one of these things. So we've got the sorcery one. Now I want to bring up the secrets one. And this is unbelievable because it's you and John Carlton. So arguably the two greatest living direct response copywriters, at least that anyone like us could have access to. I mean, there's some guys that, that
are locked in a room somewhere.
They
You're
are
right.
locked in a room somewhere, and those guys are amazing too, but you can't get anything out of them. So this is a big deal. First of all, to have you and John together. Now, this is interesting. Carlton does something in here, it's an advanced USP workshop, and everyone's heard USP forever. And it's like, the thing is, everyone would tell you that USPs are super important, but ain't nobody got one. And so the guy telling you the USP is a big deal has no USP, and if he does, it's terrible. How do you fix this?
Well,
how is this going to help someone fix it? Because it is a big deal, and no one really does it.
Yeah, and the bad news is it's complicated. So those of us who teach unique selling proposition, and its variants, unique value proposition, there's 5 or 6 variants to it. What I get asked most often is, could you give me a unique selling proposition? I mean, it literally is the authenticity issue, right? And if I could give it to you, it wouldn't be unique, nitwit. What John has done brilliantly is provided people a process for thinking through themselves, their business, their product, their service. So the second thing you'll hear most often is, well, there's nothing unique about what I do. Right? Well, so there's 2 possible responses to that. Well, there's 3, I guess. One is fold up your tent, go get a job. Right? 2, find a very tall building so there can be no mistake. Walk to the ledge, jump. All right? 3, fix it. I mean, fix it. Okay? There's a way to make everything unique. So I just told Dave before we came on camera. Okay? So is this okay? By the way, we can no longer see the timer, so I have no idea where we are.
Yeah.
So there's a new party plan company. You know that, so in party plans, like Tupperware. So for years and years and years, it's nothing new. There have been always 4 or 5 companies that are party plan companies that sell sex toys, sometimes lingerie, adult products. Right? They're all attended by women. And
I have a great idea for a new venture.
Well, so here's the new one. Okay, I just saw this in the news. Okay, this is a party plan company that deals in such products. The 2 things about their parties that are unique is couples must come, right? And everybody is naked.
Now we're talking about a party.
Now we're talking about party, and it's unique.
Yeah,
okay?
exactly right.
See, you can't say that, you can't sit there and say, I can't make what I do unique. Some element of it can be changed in a way that supports a legitimate and authentic unique selling proposition. So Carlton has provided paths to think this through and not only wind up, which is why it's so valuable. It's not a gimmick.
Yep.
It's not, again, a
Mad
Libs unique selling proposition template. It not only gets you to a unique selling proposition, it gets you to a unique factor in your business that, if it is not already there, gets created in order to do the unique selling proposition.
Yep.
So I do this a lot as a copywriter. I just wrote copy yesterday for a client in the dental field for their next seminar. And our relationship is I make up everything that's going to happen, and then they figure out how to fulfill it. Okay? Which, by the way, as a freelance copywriter, it sounds like more work, but it's actually...
It's a dream. All you got to do is sell
It's actually
stuff.
better.
Yeah,
right?
the work is on them.
So that event has to have a unique selling proposition, and it has to be different than the one they did 3 months ago, right? And it has to be authentic. It has to be something that can be fulfilled. Okay? And so there's a thought process to get to that, right? And Carlton's done a great job of describing it in the buy now system.
I like the idea of having a cure for the my business is boring and there's nothing special about me. The thing that I always default to when advising people on this is to suggest to specialize. Is there a default that you have that sort of helps?
No, but there's a lot. So that's one of the paths.
Or to nicheify, I guess.
Yeah, is from generic to niche. Another path is niche to generic. Another path is generic to multiple niches, which often gives you price elasticity, right? So the minute that we turned this into 5 products and did make them buy now for healthcare professionals, make them buy now for retail, make them buy now for financial advisors, you could immediately double the price of the product.
Well,
right?
Financial advisors, you could triple.
Maybe you could triple.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. And you've done nothing but take a generic product and niche it. So that is a path. It is only one of many paths, but it is a path. I wouldn't call it a default, but it is, let me say it this way, it's a fairly reliable path.
Is there one that's overlooked that you see that you kind of want to say, dude, do this, you're missing the boat here?
Well, the one people miss most is sort of a version of that. It is demographic, psychographic targeting. It is making the thing for, or remaking the thing for, a very particular target customer. And most people miss it because most business owners think the bigger the tent, the more money.
Right.
Right? The more inclusive we are, the more customers that we can get.
I hope they always think that.
And
makes our job easier.
yes, yeah. I mean, really, a powerful marketing, sales, copy strategy is divide and conquer, is, discriminate, is appeal to everybody's desire to be elite. And so it's one a lot of people miss.
I like that one. I have to say, this is a damn good interview we got going on here. Okay, let me show you something else here. You guys call this the system, and essentially...
So just for clarity, a quick summary.
Yes.
The first notebook you showed, which is the sorcery notebook,
right,
is really all the tools. It's all, you don't need to open it.
I'm trying to sell stuff.
Okay. It is all about separating people from their conditioned and habitual behavior, so that they can buy now.
Right.
The second one that you showed is really methodology, right? It is copy, it is sales structures, it is architectures, that many of which are not commonly known by most business people, and candidly, even most copywriters.
And that
Hence,
sure
it's
makes the
called
process
secrets.
a lot easier.
Yeah.
And now we get this one. And this is the thing I always default to because I'm a shortcut lover. And this is system. And this is, to call it a swipe file, I think, is to really do this a disservice, because the way this is organized, this is amazing. What they've done is they've taken headlines and subheads and openings, bullets, offers, calls to actions, and they're also providing templates in here, but you really have the swipe elements as they should appear in the marketing piece, which I think is great. So swipe files are a pretty big deal.
So I have a room that is organized exactly the same way.
So that was my question I have written down, is how do you personally use a swipe
I have a
file?
room that is organized exactly the same way.
That's amazing.
And I am continually adding to it. I don't rely on it as much as I used to. I have giant swipe files in my head.
You probably just have to swipe your own stuff.
And the subconscious, well, there's a lot of that too. Yeah. And the subconscious will go find it and produce it. But if I'm even a little stuck, I will go into the room. So this is sort of a condensation, a best of the room is really what it is.
The value this stuff gives to me is it's an unsticking mechanism.
Right, that's right. That's right.
I've been at it for 15 years, and you've been at it for like 7,000 years.
Yep.
And I don't know if you still have this, but the damn blank screen is horrible. Because you're ready, and it's, it's 7 in the morning or whatever, and you're ready to start writing.
See, I don't let that happen.
So how do you fix it?
I don't let that happen. I think sitting down at a blank screen is horribly unproductive.
It's certainly no fun.
And I think, by the way, that it is why a lot of business owners trying to write their own copy, and even professional copywriters, find it so difficult, unpleasant, and slow. Mm-hmm. And so the average pro freelancer does 6 to 12 projects a year. That's it. Okay? Now, some of that's because they can't get a client, okay? But some of it is because even if they got more clients, they couldn't produce the work. Mm-hmm. Okay? So I do between 30 and 50. Okay? And mine are usually more complex than what most freelancers are doing. I don't have 30 seconds for being stuck. When I'm scheduled to sit down at 7:10 in the morning and write X, fingers better be moving at 7:10, right?
Because your schedule's so insane. It's like 7:32.
That thing's got to be done.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. So I never allow a blank screen. So one answer to it, so there's really 3 answers. One answer to it, which Carlton also talks about, is your raw material. Mm-hmm. Your table of raw material, your floor of raw material, your stacks of raw material, which as a professional I have to get from the client, but also I often have to go round it up because the client doesn't have everything you need.
They're never going to have it.
So that can be, so if you're writing, so the last time I rewrote all the proactive copy for Copywriting, mm-hmm. and gave them a new, it's really a version of this, same tab dividers specifically for proactive. Right. So their internal writers can access it, mm-hmm. right? So last time I did it, before I ever went to work on it, I got a year's worth of all the teen girl magazines that are on the market, and all.
I would like to see you at the checkout counter.
And all the mom magazines. You always at least buy a Maxim. So, so you go to Barnes & Noble, you get all those, mm-hmm. right? 4 or 5 of the teen girl fiction chicklet books, which mm-hmm. are mostly at this moment vampire books. Mm. So you get all that stuff, right? And go through it. Ads, keep some ads, mm-hmm.
which
now get torn apart, and headline goes over here, this goes over here.
Do you physically rip the thing out?
Yeah, or make 5 Xeroxes if I have to in order to cut it, to put it in pieces and put it in piles. Editorial content, yes. I watch some teen girl TV now that I didn't pay any attention to before. So I gather, I go historical, not just contemporary, what worked selling complexion solutions to teens and to their mothers 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 40 years ago. And so I build a pretty good, there's 20 other categories. I build a pretty good raw material pile, mountain really, mm-hmm. and then winnow that mountain down. So really by the time you've done that, you can write from pile. Okay? And in here, there's however many tab dividers there are, those are really piles.
This is
so you
worth
can,
the whole thing right
here. You can write from pile, mm-hmm. right? You also have have started your subconscious working on it
Thinking up the angle
through
and all
through that process,
Yeah.
right? Then the second way to avoid it is with the swipe files themselves. So back to the room, the whole health category is close enough that I can tack the health-related swipe files and pull from those. And then the third thing that helps is just experience. So somebody may not have that. They may not have 15 years. They may not have 25 years. They may not have 50 years. Although many people, if they're writing copy for themselves, they have a lot of experience in selling what they sell one-to-one. Mm-hmm. Okay? So if they transcribe, if they record and transcribe some of their phone calls, or their best salesperson's phone call, or that can be the experience pile.
Yeah.
And again, if I had those transcripts, I would now rip up those transcripts and, oh, this works for an opening. It goes in this pile. Oh,
Speaking
this works and this goes in this pile.
That's the word you never hear when people talk about copy and then copy products. It's always headlines, bullets, and guarantees. I think the opening is one of the most overlooked and vitally important parts of any message ever, and you've got a ton of them in this, which delighted me. I was like, oh, this is great. If I can get the damn opening started, I'm done. I'm good. Get it started and then write the headline later. But that opening's critical.
So Sugarman's description is as good as any. Is you're creating a grease chute, so it's got to have sides on it. And one of the functions of everything, so the headline space, what I call the headline real estate, which may be pre-head, headline, subhead, maybe two subheads, maybe take up half a page, full page, whatever. One of its two jobs is to make you read the first 2 or 3 paragraphs, right? And those first 2 or 3 paragraphs, that opening, one of it's got to get you to be willing to read a page or two. And people don't, they don't give it enough thought.
And I don't want to say they don't have to now because of this, but this really helps jar that process.
Yeah, look,
really,
I
really
don't
quickly.
think of this, again, there's enough shortcuts here that in many purposes, you could take one from column A, one from column B. You could go into the tab divider. You could go in here and pick an architecture. You could go in there and pick one from each tab divider. You could barely tweak them, and you could stitch them together and kind of sand off the rough edges, and you'd be good enough for a particular purpose. That's not what this is built for. It's not its intent.
I really wouldn't encourage it in any way, because you might as well get good at it. If you're
Well,
gonna do it.
its intent is to sort of be there with you while you are doing it, and coach and guide and point and stimulate, so that each time you do it, you get better. And again, so you wind up when you're done with something that is authentically you, not off the shelf.
I think that people underestimate the value long term of a good sales message. You think, especially in the internet world, we think product launch or something, and they're great, and lots of money has been made through launches. We think, okay, I'm going to write this letter, I'm going to sell it, and then we're done. And they fail to realize that potentially that letter could produce revenue for them for years.
Yeah.
What's the longest running one that you can remember ever even hearing about? I'm
Ever
thinking
hearing
Schwartz's floats fat out of the body letter for the
Probably
doctor book.
that, maybe a couple of boardroom letters. I mean, there are certainly campaigns going on 20, 25 years. My go by the inch sales letter did not change a word for 11 years.
Isn't this over?
I have a campaign for Michael Kimball, a direct mail piece that we have mailed at least 100,000 pieces a month, some months 500,000.
It's a lot of mail.
Every month for 7 years without having to change it. So, decade of life is very achievable in print, in direct mail, and in broadcast, but even online. I mean, that mail piece drives to an online video sales letter, which also has not been changed in 7 years. and it's online. So you can't say you can't do it in online media, because you can.
Yeah, we just don't think that
most
way.
online media people. Yeah, so most people think of, most marketers make the same mistake most small business people make. They get up in the morning and think about income today. They never think about equity, right? This really is equity. So like what I try and do for clients when I write copy is not just create income today. So like the seminar campaign I'm doing for this client, it's not my favorite thing to do, because it's really going to get used once and it's never going to get used again, like a launch, other than I'll recycle some copy out of it. But I prefer to create assets. So you can pay me more if I create assets, but it's better for you if I create an asset that once we get the kinks out of it, that thing can make money day in, day out for 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, 10 years, without you having to fool with it, you know. And the internet has not killed that. It has not made that go away.
I think it's made it easier, because this is a less expensive media. Now, yeah, I know there's a lot more competition, but most of that competition doesn't know what the hell they're doing.
No.
So therefore, if you have some good structure and you have some good psychological stuff in there, and you actually have a decent product that can help people, I think that it's a much bigger blessing than we realize.
Brian Kurtz at Boardroom, and I've had this conversation a number of times, that even if you are a committed online only person, you have to know that the people paying for postage stamps and printing, okay, we have to be better at this. The very fact that you can do it for free or nearly free has made a lot of people very sloppy.
Yeah, super sloppy.
Very lazy, very dumb.
I say let them keep doing that.
Well, yeah. Because if you're committed to doing online, but it is good enough that you can actually invest real money in it offline, it's going to work a whole lot better. So I have an online video sales letter right now. We are converting at no less than 22% to 26% of every visitor.
Good Lord.
Now, what's particularly interesting about it that will shock people is it's 1 hour and 23 minutes long, which everybody will tell you, you can't do that.
Well, they're idiots.
It's 1 hour and 23 minutes long, and it's converting at 22 to 26%.
That's insane.
Now, I have to confess, we haven't conquered getting the traffic to it at the right number yet. We're close.
You going in the mail?
Yeah, we're doing mail. We're doing online too, by the way. The target demo is 60 years of age and up.
Well, you got to get.
So driving them to a VSL is problematic. But the ones who are going there, 22 to 26%.
That's strong.
Yeah, from an hour and 23-minute presentation. And that thing, what it sells and who it sells to, that thing could be evergreen. If we can fix the other part of it, I'll bet that thing runs for 20 years and never has to be tweaked.
And that's perfect.
Yeah.
I mean, that's like a house. You know, you think about it just
It's
like you would think of a
real
rental
estate.
property. Yeah.
That's like real estate. There'll be an income stream and there's equity value in it. And I can let a property management company take care of it and send me a check.
That's exactly what
That's
you're
exactly
for.
what this is.
That's some pretty good stuff. This has been a fantastic interview, and this is a hell of a product. I mean, if you want to write copy, if you want to escape the angst and the procrastination and the fear that the copy is not going to be any good, then this is the investment to make. I believe from experience, really, that the time you spend writing winning copy is the most lucrative and highest paying time that you can invest into your business, and this will help you be better at writing copy, whether you're writing for the web, whether you're writing for the mail, whether you're writing for space ads, whether you're writing for video sales letters or group one-to-many presentations, webinars, whatever. This is going to help you craft that message and do a good job and help people sell more stuff and make more money and have more fun. So thanks a lot for watching this video. If you want to check this out, I've got a link under the video for you. Got a little description of it there. Click on that if you're interested. Click on it anyway, just to see how the copy works that sells it. Thanks so much for coming.
Thank you, Frank.
I've enjoyed it. See y'all.